My name's Connor, and how do you want it to go? My name's Connor.
Say your last name too.
Say your last name too.
Yeah, Connor Picard,
And
I am a professional portrait photographer. That works.
My name's Connor Picard, and I'm a professional portrait photographer.
There you go. We're in now. Oh god, this is gonna be a long clip. All right. So essentially, like I told you, the purpose of this whole endeavor, this series, is to speak with creative people, other creators, about creativity on kind of a deeper level. I want to, get an understanding of what this. I want to have. I guess here's the best way. Premise. Here's the premise. I want to have a discussion about creativity and what it means to people, especially people like you, people like myself, and other people who are maybe a little more creatively inclined. So we're gonna jump right in. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right, bro. First question, and I don't mean to, put you two on the spot with these. You didn't see them until just recently, but I want to know when that car is gonna leave. I want to know when I say the word creativity, what does that mean to you?
When you say personal creativity?
Yeah, what does creativity mean to you?
I think personal creativity is when you have maybe a spark or an epiphany, or you have something that you want to bring into fruition. I think that would be it. Something that you have a want or a need to bring to attention or show people, or something you can be proud of potentially. And I'm sure a ton of people struggle with different, what their creative thing is, because it could be anything. You could be creative or passionate about food or collecting rocks or whatever. Yeah. But in this type of artistic creativity, there's a very big sense of needing to create creativity, finding a need to make something that you want to be proud of.
Right. Okay. So I have like a freaking massive list of questions, and they're not in any particular order, which I wanted to organize them to kind of
to chop it up so you can easier to edit.
Right. But I'm just gonna kind of, I don't know if I'll maybe refer to this a little bit, but I sort of know generally what most of the questions are. So I'm just gonna try and
do whatever you gotta do. If you want to go down the list, you can go down the list. But
so I guess we wanna touch base on. I think you hear a lot of people. If you ever heard the expression creativity as a muscle, and any muscle you have
to stretch it.
You have to stretch it. You have to work it in order to keep it sharp and strong. When you hear that, there are also people out there who I think believe that there are creative people and there are people who are not creative. Do you think that creativity is something that few people have, or is it something that a lot of people have but few people really tap into and use?
I think I would genuinely say, not that I want to say it, but I do think that few people have it. I would say there's a good number of people who genuinely aren't creative or don't have this artistic capability. Not saying you have to draw or create art or anything, but there's certain people out there who just don't have ambition, drive to do the type of work creatives are doing. Um, but I think the people who are creatives, and if you do have to stretch that muscle, I think it might be less of a muscle and more of a mood. I think it fluctuates a lot. Um, I think you can say like you gotta stretch it to keep it active, or because it's like anything else. But I think a lot of creatives sometimes hit ruts and stuff, and you either have to like survive the rut or admit defeat. But I think a lot of creatives are um, stronger willed than just giving up. I think there's a lot of times when you have the ability to be creative, and sometimes you get these really good ideas, but the motivation sometimes isn't there. But a lot of the times it's a almost forcing yourself to stay creative, and then maybe that will spike off, or um, like be a fractal in spreading to something else.
Right.
Getting you into a different mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you actually kind of just touched on a couple of the other things I wanted to talk about, so that's solid. Going off of that idea of like creative ruts, because I know anybody who creates hits them at one point or another. Some people hit more than other people. In those circumstances, I kind of want to know what do you do personally to push past a creative dry spell or a rut? I know what do you do to get out of that?
Personally, for dry spells or creative ruts, points where I want to create, but I either get discouraged, or I see other people's work and it makes me feel like, why am I doing this? Like, they're so good, or um, trying to like compare myself to other photographers. And part of getting out of that mindset is um, trying to differentiate between um, like your feelings versus what's more important, like being discouraged by that person or being motivated because that person is doing well. And I think there's a lot of photographers out there who, I mean, there's people everywhere, creatives, who are jealous of other people being successful, or the opportunities that some other creatives have that you may not, or not in the same capacity. And, excuse me. But I think you have to see other people's talents and realize like that it's motivation or drive to create something that you're proud of. That you can say, I did that, and hopefully other people will see that, and you can, maybe they have questions about your creativity or how you did something, and that maybe prompts you to do more of that thing or something like that. But for me, getting in a rut, I usually, a big thing is like being outside or weather to do portraits, to do actual things, good locations, genuine people, working with people that want to, be helpful, other creative friends who are doing new concepts or new techniques, seeing cool work and being around other creatives, I think is a huge thing. It's less like you don't have to be jealous about other people's work. You don't have to be, so focused on what other people are doing, but try to feed off of other people's creativity. Experiment. Open yourself to new things. If it's midnight and you're just sitting there and you're like wallowing because you can't figure out what you're doing or you're upset, just go, leave your house, go to I don't know, a grocery store or a gas station, anywhere it can be a place for a really cool moment or opening yourself up to new experiences. Um, that'll usually get you out of a rut.
Sweet. This is solid, actually. Now this is kind of what I hoped would happen. You're kind of just like sifting through a lot of the points that I was going to try and bring up, so this is good. This sort of piggybacks. You brought up like probably 4 or 5 points that I want to touch on there, and this piggybacks off of the last question, being in creative ruts. As a creator, do you think that creativity is something that you can force, or does it have to come naturally, and why or why not? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think you can force creativity. The gauge of whether it's quality over quantity, that's another thing. But I definitely think you can force it, because having like pure creativity or like an original idea is a little different, because in that case you will probably be passionate about it. You will be very excited to share it or bring it to life. But forcing creativity, as in taking a concept or something that you've seen and replicating it, or somehow taking it and making your own, that I feel like you can like it, you can admire it from somebody else's, but I think you will always be your biggest critic. So even if it's the same concept, or you did your best to recreate it, or you forced it, you might not like where it went or how it was executed. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think with enough forced creativity, you can finally figure out something to make it yours or original. Take different concepts and combine them together.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, so like, basically, just keep pounding the rock, and you might not always get the best results.
Yeah.
But at least, if you keep going and you keep working and you keep grinding, then eventually you're gonna start to produce things that are maybe a little bit
Yeah.
better.
So I think it's almost like a statistical thing. Like, if every good idea is 1 out of 100, you might have 99 forced creative ideas, and one of them is a genuine, really good idea that you created. And maybe that one thing is worth going through all the rest that maybe didn't work out the best or how you thought it was. But finding that one, I think, will definitely make it worth doing another 100 or doing another 1,000 ideas.
I agree. Okay, so I'm going to jump back around to, you talked quite a little bit ago about inspiration from other creators and things like that. What was I saying? I have like 2 questions that piggyback off of that. Oh, as far as what you do, inspiration obviously is like huge. You can't, I don't think anyway, that you can do your best work probably without drawing inspiration from other places. Of course, trying to be yourself at the same time, but to get other people to look to, like you said, to inspire you is really important. And I want to know, for you personally, in kind of 2 columns, as far as like photographers and people who do similar work to you, what do you look to, or who do you look to for inspiration? And then also outside of photography completely, like, are there things like music or movies or whatever that you might draw inspiration from?
So within photography, people that I look towards, there's a bunch of different photography, and you can being a portrait photographer is being very people conscious, being very not oblivious, but being very um, studious about people and paying attention to the finer details in somebody, whether that be like actual facial features or more abstract as how positioning people works and stuff like that. Um, but the what's the first part?
Um, Within photography, inspiration within photography was the first call.
Okay. Inspiration. There's a bunch of different types of photography. Whether I'm really inspired by people, by telling a little bit of a story of a single person, getting real emotion out of somebody, um, and whether that be a very simple, somebody's graduating and they need senior pictures, or doing a wedding day, um, the more commercial, the more standard types of photography, stuff that people pay for, services. That's all pretty standard, and it's exciting to capture those moments for people um, because they genuinely appreciate it, or they should. Most people are genuinely happy to have these memories, um, and I'm genuinely happy to supply those or to create those for people. I feel proud. They are ecstatic about stuff. Um, that's the type of thing that really gets me pumped. But I would say stuff that I genuinely like to shoot or love to shoot, whether that's not contracted or not like um, for somebody, stuff for me, conceptual work, stuff that isn't necessarily the norm. Um, Doing portraits that aren't always going to be like um, normal or natural to somebody. Um, Stuff like going out into the woods and getting into weird position, lying in the grass, putting your feet up, something weird, something strange. I also really think spreading yourself from weddings to singular portraiture to conceptual work to some landscapes, or even like music photography. I'm very passionate about music photography, and seeing bands telling like a little bit of a story of one night, it's one moment, but it's captured in stills, and you can see the emotion of the musician and them being a creative, and you know just because it's two different mediums doesn't mean that it's like isn't connected or intertwined. I think music and photography go together like none other. Um, Genuinely, two very important mediums coming together. And then the second part.
Yeah, about outside, completely unrelated to photography, what kind of things inspire you?
Right. There's a lot of artistic movies that are inspiring films. Playing with emotion, and like film is similar to photography, but it's a moving story. You have music to accompany it almost always, or lack thereof, with just very raw footage. I think that inspires a lot. Getting to tell a story and watch it happen instead of trying to piece together photos and telling a story that way. I think other mediums are very cool. Paintings, trying to mimic other art through different mediums is always an interesting thing. Being inspired by illustrations or tattoo work, anything that you can put on the wall and really stare at and think about, I think is such an important thing for my photography and my creativity. Seeing other people, um, be able to create what they want to and be proud of it. And I think being very generic in general, just animals or people, not necessarily in art in any way, but just seeing animals or people, emotions in general can really spark something in you. If you see a kid playing with a dog outside, the kid is extremely happy. The sun is out. The dog is playing. Genuinely, just a good scene. There's a moment happening there that maybe the kid is in the moment, but you're seeing it from like a third person's point of view. Um, you're abstract or out there, but you're witnessing this moment, and I think that can get something moving in you, especially feelings. Um, you want to create that same feeling in a totally different medium, in a totally different way. Um, and I think that's um, a super important part of being a creative is seeing something artistic or seeing something that you find important or with feeling in something totally different, and then trying to interpret and um, bring that feeling to somebody else, and how they can interpret that um, to themselves.
Word. All right. I want to talk about, stay on sort of the inspiration topic. So, I think that obviously there's a lot of people in every creative medium that are iconic. They do really cool things. A lot of people know who they are. They have this established style that is recognizable for people.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, younger creatives or maybe up and coming creators will draw upon that style, that work, which of course, like we said, inspiration is vital. But I want to know your thoughts on where do you draw the line between inspiration and imitation?
I think for some things it's fairly obvious when, because there are creatives out there. I know people who are very singular in the style that they are, and but maybe it's just for like a singular area, you know, like a single city. You might know somebody who has a very particular style, but I'm sure there's other creatives around the country or even in the world who are just the same. You just aren't exposed to them. You don't see that type of work, and it makes it very singular. So, um, I think having your own personal style is very important, but um, I do think there's almost like not necessarily a limit. I think that would be naive to say that there's a limit to how far you can go or what type of creativity, because I think there's always going to be an audience for something, for whatever you prefer, whatever type of art you want to create. But I think the imitation aspect is, let me have a thought here. The imitation, I think imitation can be a problem if you simply take somebody's idea and don't apply a new filter, a new personal look to it. Your idea might be there, and I'm sure there's a good heart to it, but if you don't, you know, apply something new, or if you don't put yourself into it and you're just doing it to be like that other person, then it becomes like are you really being creative, or are you just trying to, you know, ride a wave, or you know, fit to a circumstance or fit to somebody else's ideas. And I think for some people maybe that's harder than others. I don't necessarily. I don't know if there's more to it or not.
Well, you got something, or can
No.
I? Here, let me pose this for you. That guy that I showed you earlier, Sam Colder, really successful in what he does.
Yep.
He's got 900,000 Instagram followers, 500,000, 600,000 people on YouTube, and he's not a guy who uploads regularly. It's just when he wants to, he does it. But he's has a very recognizable style. Is from right down to the teal and orange look in all his photos and videos, the kind of the color grade that he uses, to the way that he edits, a lot of fast pace, really complex sort of masking transitions, moving behind objects to reveal the next shot and things like that. There are a lot of people who you can look up on YouTube, like a Sam Colder inspired video, and it's virtually the same color grade. A lot of times people will use like the same songs that he uses in his videos, and they'll try and replicate the types of transitions in the shots. So how do you feel about people who do that? They kind of make their own version of somebody else's, but aren't necessarily bringing too much else to the table. It's kind of just.
I think for people who don't know about like the original artwork or maybe where it came from, you are inspired by it, like, and that's the problem with like digital art or photography and video. You can buy people's presets. You can make your stuff look just like other people's stuff. It'll still be your art, but it's, produced the same way other people's stuff is. And if you can't, differentiate yourself from those people's work, then it's not necessarily. I can't say it's not special, but what's different? What are you? You're not bringing anything to the table necessarily.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I think it's, if you look at all the people who, and I reference obviously like a lot of video creators and people that I watch, but the people who find success, I think they do it because they have this recognizable style that there might be pieces that they draw from other people, but as a whole, you watch a video that this person has made and they made that video because of certain aspects or things that they do. A Casey Neistat video, a Casey Neistat video. Sam Colder, Peter McKinnon has sort of brought in that really slow motion cinematic style and made that like a mainstream thing, and a lot of people are starting to piggyback off of that and do the same sort of thing. But I kind of get what you're getting at. Like,
yeah, I think if you apply your own style to something, I think whatever you create will be just fine.
Right.
There will always be an audience that is going to appreciate your work, and hopefully that makes you strive for new content, creating stuff that you're proud of, going back, just being, okay with what art you are creating, or whatever it is.
Okay, sweet. On the topic of style and developing your own voice, I guess you could say, or your recognizable feel to your work, I know when I look at your photos that you took them, I tend to be able to.
Do you think so?
Yeah. I mean, and maybe, I don't know, and I think it's hard too to look at your own stuff and say that this is my style sometimes, but I feel like for people who aren't you, and people, you post photos every single day, so I've become pretty accustomed to what your photos, your feel is, the type of photos you take. how do you think people develop a style? How do you find your niche kind of and your look and the vibe that you want to convey for people?
I think a lot of it starts out with you not seeing those mediums, you not getting exposed to other things, and it's a very like plain vanilla getting into the art and then figuring out like there's other people like me, there's other creatives, and you get exposed to all this different work and all this different pieces and stuff, and you're finally getting inspired with the different tones or different colors. As far as photography goes, you get all this different stuff coming together, and you can differentiate between what you like and what you don't, and how to separate the stuff that you find important, or the different stuff that you want to include, and kind of develop over time the things that work for you and the things that don't work for you. I know people who edit either straight orange and blue pictures, or people who are very pink and neons, or lifestyle photographers that are orange sensitive and muted greens and all that. Everything kind of has a niche, but finding one that works for you and then going deeper into it, I think is going to ultimately give you your best content.
I agree. I think it's not easy. Especially with the exposure to all these other people that you have. Like I look at like the stuff that I'll do. I really like the look that Sam Colder gets to his videos and his photos, and like I've always been a follower of what Peter McKinnon does. So I think it is hard, especially when you're exposed to other people and you start to edit in a similar way, and it's a little bit difficult maybe to differentiate from the look you're creating and the look that they have created, and that's made them almost famous for what they're doing. But so yeah, that's definitely an interesting conversation to have, is how you actually become your own person, I guess, within the creative realm. I don't know, we could talk for hours about that, but okay. We've filled up one memory card already, quite good.
Oh.
I have 2 slots in there now, so it's
okay.
Once I get to about, if we make it to like 50 minutes, I'll probably have to stop it, and if we have more to say, I'll throw in another memory card, just to be sure that we get
How long are these videos supposed to be?
they're gonna be pretty short.
Okay.
Probably like 6, I usually go in like that 6-7 minute range max.
Okay.
So it'll be a lot to watch through and pick out like the best of the best, but we'll make it happen. So yeah, that's an interesting conversation about style and finding your own voice in the creative realm. I think when you know, you'll know though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely know when you know, or maybe you don't.
That's true
but
too.
It's just a matter of being inspired, creating, and then see where it goes. If people like it, then you'll definitely know. If things need to change, then I think you will also know. There's going to be response, feedback. Trying to compare yourself to other people and kind of distinguishing it that way is also a good idea.
Right. Well, I think just if I would throw in advice for style hunters, it would be, just continue to create and don't get caught up so much in that idea.
Yeah.
And
that it needs to be perfect, or
right.
it needs to be like a certain photographer. It doesn't
Right.
have to be like professional grade. A lot of these people that you are inspired by, or the people you see on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, they're professionally endorsed. They're making a lot of money with professional equipment, and I think that might discourage some people when you you try to replicate something, or you try to do something with what you have or what's accessible to you, and it doesn't come out the same way. And I think you have to realize, like, these people have thousands and thousands of dollars put into this, and they're also getting paid a lot, you know? Um, and you have to, do with what you got almost. Really strive to, if you want something creatively, you really have to go for it. I know I've really put in a lot of hard work and money to be able to do the type of things that I'm doing and want to do. So
Right on.
it's all a it's all a learning slash getting to where you want to go kind of thing.
Right. Okay. We're gonna jump from the style combo now. This is one of my favorite questions that I sort of wanted to touch on. This has been good. I haven't really had to refer to this too much, but when I look at society, the culture that we live in, the world, I feel like there's a lot of this, I want to be like him, or I want to look like her, I want to live like that person. Sort of, I feel like at times it seems like we live in a society that encourages conformity. So I want to know from your point of view, how do you, in a world that's, and it's a lot of media things going on that tell you this is how you want to be, how do you break away from that oppression, that sort of push to conform to the societal norms and do your own thing?
Strong-willed. I think you have to be very comfortable and really be into the work. If your heart's not into the work and you're just you're on the bridge of like whether or not you should create something or shouldn't, you have to be pretty concrete or steadfast in what you're doing. Otherwise, it's never going to work. It's never going to be executed the way you want it. Because if you don't believe in it, then I highly doubt it's ever going to come across to an audience that your heart was in it. I think you can visibly see when somebody, did a half-ass attempt at something they were trying to create or work on. Because there's such a difference between client work and personal work, you have to, for me, like, separating what I want a wedding to look like for somebody else and editing something that I personally stylistically like, it's a huge difference in style, huge difference in how I visually want something to come over to somebody else. I think having a personal style and making maybe like a separate style, keeping two separate things, is just fine. Remind me what
We're talking about society and
Yeah.
pushing conformity and how you separate yourself from the rest of the pack, in the sense of not so much the creative culture, but the culture of the people who say you should go to college, get a 9 to 5, and work until you're 65.
Societal norms really, I think, stick with a person. If you were brought up that way, I think they stick with you all the way up until like maybe you started college, or you've really made this experience where you can differentiate between what's going to make you happy and what's important to you. If what you want to do, requires college, then by all means, go do college, go do something prestigious, or study to further yourself for that purpose. But there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have even thought of, or nothing registered until finished high school, started college, and then realized like you don't need a sheet of paper to do a lot of stuff, to be happy and to do the things that you want to do in life. And through music and other stuff, there's a saying that security is not a desk job. Success is not determined by leather-bound books and ink on paper. And really accepting that, really conforming to what you believe in and what's important to you, I think will always outweigh society, always will be more important to you in the end. You'll live a more thorough, happier life if you figure out what makes you happy instead of trying to conform to working for an insurance agency or making bills more comfortable. Like, maybe sacrificing financial security for being happy or doing the things you want is worth it. And that's something that everybody's going to have to figure out for themselves. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I definitely think it's important to realize that you don't have to be like your father or your mother or other people in your family or people that are successful. Not everything is a straight path. There's a lot of different things you can do, different roads you can take, but ultimately it's maybe it's cheesy, but it's less about the destination and more about the journey. So
I agree. I think that it's if you want something, you should go get it. Shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks about what you're doing as long as you believe in it. So this is a little bit similar. I want to make sure I get these all in here before I run out of all my space and stuff. But I probably got like 7-8 minutes before I have to put a different card in. But really quick, this is similar to the last question, but I think we definitely live in a world where people are they don't, and maybe it's more so the older generation or generations above us that I've told several people when they say, what do you want to do with your life, and I say, well, the dream would be to travel, make the videos that I want to make, that make me happy, and let the money come from that. And a lot of people will just look at you and say, okay. And it's like, I don't think they get it. Do you think that why do you think it is that we don't live in a world where your dream should be completely acceptable to everybody? That nobody should be able to scoff at what you want to do. If you want to do something, why is that so foreign to other people?
I think some aspects of it are, in an older generation, I think they are closed-minded because of necessity, because that wasn't even in the realm of possibility. Whether specifically because some people had to work for something because they weren't well off, or um, they didn't have the opportunities to do these types of things, or they had other responsibilities at the time when this was all. Maybe when they were at the same age, they didn't have the opportunity, or they had other responsibilities that they weighed over their dreams, and but maybe other things are um, people. Somebody told them that they were never going to be able to do that, or somebody told them that that isn't a possibility. Somebody ingrained in them that you can't do that, and I think it's all too fake, especially now, nowadays, when you can do anything and make money from it, especially content creating. Um, I genuinely don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility. Um, you can almost always find a way to make something work. Um, you know, paychecks might be far and in between, um, but I definitely think whatever it is you're trying to do, you can find a way to do it and be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I always like the idea that you got to do what you love, and the money will come, but you can't be so focused, in the short term that why am I not seeing my wallet reaping the benefits of my work,
Right.
You know what I mean? But
you can't be entitled
right.
to an end goal. You can't be entitled to a long-term goal while you've only been doing it for a short amount of time. Things don't work that way, and I don't think things will ever work that way. Sure, there are people who got lucky or have had opportunities to, for lack of a better term, like get rich quick. But it's one in a million. Not everybody's gonna get that. So you gotta work and keep doing what's important to you.
Right on. Okay, here we are. We are resuming the talk show. This is kind of a general-ish question. Oh shit, we didn't even talk about who you really are technically. Okay, well, let's just give a brief background. How did you get started in photography? How long you been doing this? Like the whole spiel.
I think I got really interested or started in photography by seeing different types of social media and what people were creating, and then I started just taking pictures of my phone, trying to be all artsy, and that eventually got me into using a camera that I had at my house, and then I finally decided to buy my own camera and continue to talk to my friends about doing pictures and going out and creating, and then through that and eventually doing some photography on my own and like learning the trade, opened myself up to opportunities with working with other creatives and working with a company, which now I work full time as a professional photographer, and I travel. I meet tons and tons of people, new experiences. Everything is always different. Photography has turned into much more than a photographer, or photography has turned into much more of more than a hobby, and it's become like a way of life. And for instance, this year I've challenged myself to a 365-day photo challenge, and constantly creating. And some people would say like creating a new thing every day would burn you out, and when you get into the swing of something for such a long time, then it's less of a burden and more of like you have a drive to do something. You think less of it as I need to I need to take something, and you turn it into I want to create something to share with people every day. And photography for me just really snowballed over the past 5 years. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've met tons and tons of people, amazing experiences that I never would have thought possible, and ultimately, it gives you a very new and different outlook on life.
Sure. All right, so that covers that. Oh, shit, I would have forgotten that completely.
I thought that was going to be the first question, and
Yeah,
it totally wasn't.
Go find it. Let's see here. Which one of these do I think is good? Okay. So this is a little bit general, but if you want to think about it on a deeper level, that would be cool. Why do you create? Why do you do what you do?
I create a lot of the stuff that I do I think a lot of art is not so much for personal gain, but to create something that you can be proud of, to share with other people, and hopefully your message or your thoughts are conveyed in the work that you do, and that's shared with other people, and you can converse about it, and you can not only can you be proud of it, but other people can see the hard work and all the thought that's put into the stuff that you do. And I think that's a big drive to create. And I think the big part is being proud of yourself, finding what you do important, and hopefully other people finding that it's important. And I think it's a back and forth thing. If you're proud and you want to share, people are going to want to see it, and you're going to get feedback, and that's going to prompt you to keep doing what you do. And it's a back and forth kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to merge a couple points here. Do you think that the world needs creators, needs people that do things like you do, do things like I do, and if so, why are creators important, and for whom are they important for?
I think creators are always going to be important. It gives the people who maybe are less inclined to be creative, or people who need a little bit of help throughout the day, or it helps people get inspired. Creating is always going to be something that people are going to value, whether it's for selling things, or getting into a client's hands, or just simply being out there for people to enjoy. I think it's a very important thing. Help me out here?
You sort of kind of just covered the majority of it, but I was going to say, like, who is it? I mean, aside from, maybe the creative people themselves, the people doing the work, but who out there is it important too, Because I look at, like, movies and things like that, and even, there might be somebody who knows, maybe they're going through a tough time, but you make a video or maybe there's a movie that they're able to watch and it helps them through that tough time. That's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of how I look at it. There are people, that I think is why we need people to do these artistic things to share with the world, because a lot of people may not realize how powerful they can be. I don't know if you feel that way too. Or
Yeah, I think art is incredibly powerful, and people are always going to need it to, feel better, or feelings are extremely powerful, and I think a lot of art, especially photography and video and movies and music, is always going to invoke powerful emotions for people, and it's always going to be around. I think it's always going to be a very increasingly important part in people's lives, because like a life without music doesn't sound like a life. It sounds very quiet, very lonely. Trying to imagine not having a playlist to your life would be, I think, insane. Something that makes you want to get up in the morning. Seeing other people's creations, I think, sparks a lot of will to do other things. These people, everybody, I would say, needs something in their life to remind them, like, yeah, this is okay. Things are okay.
I agree. Let me do this really quick. I'm going to be quick, just random throw-in questions, but when you think about the community of creators, and especially with like all the different outlets for sort of creative mediums now, with YouTube, Instagram, all the social medias and ways to share your work, what do you think the future holds for both yourself and kind of the creative community as a whole? Is it going to continue to flourish? Do you think it's going to have some darker days? Or, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think a lot of work now is, becoming digital, and that's okay. I think a lot of it is helping to show other people all the different types of work, all the stuff that is important. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you would never have known about unless there was social media or digital mediums. But I think there's potential for online media and digital media to be maybe oversaturated, to maybe have quantity over quality online. I would say I'd like to see a lot more, personally, I'd like to see a lot more physical media. Records are coming back in music. I think physical prints, photography prints, are extremely important. I think seeing a tangible product that you created, or maybe a friend created, or somebody that you're inspired by, having a tangible piece of art can really inspire to strive for something like that, or strive to be creating in a more physical sense, a more very literal create. But I do think with all this new technology and norms and stuff like that, all the abilities that we now have, I think it's going to open up a lot of doors to stuff that you would never have thought of before, stuff that you never would have thought possible, but now is very close to your touch. It's very within accessible reach.
Okay, cool. That's sort of just a random throw-in question. Just because this whole point of this is for me to for me and other people, hopefully, like to be able to share this with other people, but to like connect with that community,
the
community of creators.
Just say.
Yeah, I want people to, because a lot of times I feel like there's that jealousy and that competition in the community because you see other people succeeding and so I want to be better than this guy and I want to be the best at this, and I think we should sort of aim for that, bringing creators together and things like that. So this is to just understand other people's viewpoints and just, like I said, to have a discussion about creativity.
Mm-hmm. I think that went really well, actually, I think.
Oh, I got a couple more questions, but...
Oh, we have more?
Yeah. I gotta ask you like 3 more that are really good. Actually, we'll do this one thing I want to touch on, then I'll ask you like 3 that I really want to get to. So we talked sort of a little bit about this. God, I hate when I say little. You know when you skip the T's and little?
Little?
Just a little bit.
A little bit?
It bothers me.
Really?
Yeah, when I do it. And
bit.
I catch myself all the time,
bit.
but it just becomes so normal.
A little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit? A little bit?
Little. I don't know, I'm kind of like that. I like to, use slang a little bit, but I try to be as proper as I can unless I'm impersonating somebody or something like that. But anyways, back on topic. So yeah, we touched on this a bit, but I think especially in today's media culture, there are a lot of people who they see these guys, they see a Sam Colder or a Casey Neistat, or people who are doing these really, really cool things, and they think, oh, it would be so cool to do that. I would want to do that. And it's a lot of people have those thoughts. I've had a lot of friends who have that thought, and maybe they've never even picked up a camera before, but they'll say like, I want to do what Sam Colder does. So I think the question I want to ask is, how do you sort of separate that fascination that people have with these types of creators from an actual calling, from you knowing that is what you want to do with your life or something like that?
I think a lot of the media that these more famous creators are creating and letting other people see, it's a lot of window shopping. It's a lot of people seeing like unrealistic expectations from one person, because these people have this giant outlet to where huge opportunities come about, and that's like their life is like this really fancy window display, and you're just seeing the highlights of all this stuff, but you don't actually get to see the consumers. The audience isn't getting to see all the behind the scene work, good and bad, of how all this came about. And I think for the people who are genuinely interested and feel the need to also be creators, I think they will essentially be sifted through. These people will either do it or they won't. You can, work a full-time job and come home every single day and try to make your creative outlet work, and some people it will, but some people see these very successful creators and they say they want to do it, but they either don't know where to start or don't have the real drive to make that a reality. They don't follow it to succession.
Right. No, I get that. I think when you think about, a lot of the stuff that might look fun, and a lot of people I think also give people that have these more crazy creative type careers crap and say like, this is what you do for a living. You literally just take photos or you travel the world. I don't think those people understand the work that actually does go into, I make a 5-minute video, it takes me 40, 50 hours to edit a 5-minute video, but people don't see that. They just see the finished product. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of being taken for granted. The work that goes into some of the newer media stuff. You know, behind every picture could be like 3 or 5 minutes of work. And when you have 1,000 pictures to edit, that really racks up. Or when you've been working all semester on a painting and you're finally done, you know, so much work and time and effort went into something that you would hopefully like to see be worth it. You'd like to see the lasting result that had. Some of these video, you know, content creators that are, you know, becoming extremely popular with YouTube and whatnot. I think that is such a hard job. You have to differentiate between, like, obviously it's not hard labor. Like, obviously you're not working at a construction zone. You're not doing a lot of labor intensive stuff. You're also not necessarily dealing with, you know, working at the mall or talking to a lot of people. Not all mediums are, but not all jobs are going to be like that. This is just a new type of work, and I mean, it's entertainment at its highest. It's content for people to watch, or people to look at, or people to experience. And it's no different than, you know, production agency making this big movie and people pay to go see that. It's essentially that, but on a smaller scale. It's essentially like cable TV without having a cable provider. It's, you know, people having the ability to make videos, whether they're, you know, a couple minutes or an hour. They're creating what they want, and I think that's just as important.
Right. So we'll go. I think that, I mean, obviously, I think it's safe to say that you wouldn't have any doubt that this is what you're meant to be doing. And this is why you were put on this earth, was to do what you're doing now. Would that be a safe thing to say? You think this is what you want to do with your life?
Yeah. I think capturing moments and documenting experiences is, you know, such a humbling and exciting time for me, especially at such a young age, and being able to do the one thing I love and make a living off of it. I'm gonna sneeze. Also, will you do a B-roll of me just saying
Just clip
clip together every single one?
Oh my gosh.
It would be funny.
I'll try.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What am I forgot.
I was just kind of talking about your calling. It was going to venture into a deeper question. I wanted to say, what, for someone who knows kind of you're on that path that you want to be on, what is the advice for people who they think they know, they're pretty sure they found what they want to do? What do you do? What do you tell those people that are kind of just starting out? What's the advice you give to those types of people?
Sorry. One. Question. One more time.
So for those people who have kind of found their niche and then they think they know what they want to do with their lives, what's your advice to these in creative realms? I guess because we're focusing on, you know, creators. What is your advice to those people who are thinking about pursuing that sort of a creative career?
uh, finding a way to do it and still be um, happy with the success. Um, Doing it to where you get burnt out is never going to be a good idea. Um, and if that's a matter of having to back away from stuff that you once thought was like very important or you thought was really um, was going to be your thing, maybe that's fine. But getting burnt out and eventually um, departing on what you thought you wanted to do is not going to be the way to success. Um, you have to really go for what you want to do. Um, I've worked a ton of odd jobs while still creating, and even now while creating um, for people and doing the job that I love, I still have to find time to do personal work. I still have to work towards making myself feel fulfilled. And I don't think that's ever going to be a place where you're complacent. I don't think you ever should be complacent with the work that you're doing. I think you should always strive to be better or continually grow at what you're doing. Mastering something is not going to be, I don't think, a goal. I think being continuously better is a more realistic, and I think eventually that'll be way more successful, or that'll bring about more success for you personally than trying to meet an end goal. Setting an end goal is almost like a limitation.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's, I would say to people that are thinking about, what they want to do is just start. I think so many people will think about it for so long, they don't actually do anything. So like, yeah, I want to do that. Well then, what's holding you back? It doesn't matter how old you are. I always think it's never too soon to start, and it's certainly never too late to start. Just because you're 50 years old and you say, oh, maybe I really like this, I should go after it. Why the hell not? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But here's just a really quick question that I thought of, and I'm a big believer in this. So, how important is failure?
Well, in my line of work, we do personal critiques every single week, and we really pick apart the work that we've done. And I think failure is the only way you're going to know you're doing something wrong or something that isn't satisfactory, or that what you could be doing could be better. I think having other creatives, being surrounded by other creatives, and getting opinions, seeing what you could be doing better, and sometimes getting that harsh feedback is only going to make you better in whatever you're doing. You're not going to get better if everybody's just telling you that it's okay. Okay doesn't mean it's great, but it does mean there's room for improvement.
Right.
And I genuinely think that cut that part.
Yeah, I definitely think failure is like the best teacher. No matter how difficult a pill to swallow it can be, you're gonna be a better man.
Yeah, sometimes it sucks, but I think it's incredibly valuable. Sometimes you get really discouraged, or it's kind of a kick in the ass, but eventually it's going to make sense to you.
Right. Okay, I'm ready to hit you with like 2 bangers, and then I think we can close.
Okay.
This particular question, it's gonna sound really simple when it comes out, but it's a question that it's something I think about a lot, and I don't know if I could give a good answer. A lot of these questions, truthfully, if somebody asked me them right now, I wouldn't know how to answer them. But this next one is going to be fairly simple. It's going to be straightforward. So try and kind of look past it if possible. Maybe it is a simple answer for you. Like it's not for me, but here it is.
Okay.
All right. Do you like what you create?
A lot of what I like, a lot of what I create, I do like. There's some stuff where if you look at it long enough, you're going to start to hate it. And that's with almost anything. But that's where like continually striving to be different or change things is always going to build you as a creative and finally being proud of what you do. I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over without changing anything, and that's exactly it. If you created the same thing and never changed anything, you never grew as a creative or as a person, then of course you would start to hate it. There should always be a drive to kind of continually grow in what you do, and if you never meet that requirement, then of course you're going to start to hate what you do. But I really think that a lot of the stuff I do, in the moment I really think it's quality stuff, but maybe in 5 years I'm going to look back and see, wow, that was shitty, but it made me grow as a person and I can be proud of it now.
Right. Word. Okay, that's really good. Before I ask you the final question.
Possible.
All right, so here it is. If right now I told you, being that you're a photographer, you have one photo. The rest of your life, that's it. You can take one more photo, one last creation. What are you going to take? What story are you going to tell? What's going to be that message?
I think the first thing that I would think about is the things that I'm really drawn to and stuff that I'm proud of is single portraiture, one person in the picture, and just a little bit of color, not a lot, but just a little bit, and this thing called the creative contract, what kind of elements you're drawn to when you're creating, whether it be you like a lot of movement in your pictures or you like very still images. Do you like a lot of color or straight black and whites? And for me, my creative contract is very centered around single people, very symmetrical, very not very colorful, but a little tinge. And I think the last thing that I would create, if I only could create one more, would just be a single person creating a very, very powerful emotion, and visibly being able to see that and portray it in a very beautiful location. To be very literal, what my last thing I would create is conveying emotion. I think that's the most important thing, and that's the only thing that's ever gonna, truly stand out. Is evoking an emotion to the audience. Somebody who sees it can see a story or try to figure out the puzzle behind somebody's eyes. Seeing the texture on somebody's skin, or trying to be in the moment of that photo, I think is always going to be the most important thing.
Alright, so that's the last question. If you have any wisdom, anything to add, anything you want to get off your chest, anything you want to say.
I killed Jason.
Anything you want to say at all, the floor is yours. If not, then we'll record that last line and that'll be it.
I think just keep creating. Never stop striving to be better than you were. Because if you just don't be complacent, don't be sedentary with yourself, because that's when you fail.